You are listening to the MJ SportsCast, recapping the latest games, getting you up to date on the latest sports news, and providing our exciting Bay Area picks. This is the MJ SportsCast with your hosts, Mike Tang and Jerry Yang.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the MJ Sportscast. We have another exciting week, another Warriors win. I am joined by Jerry Yang as usual here. Jerry, how you doing today, man?
Good. Warriors basketball. I think that's the talk of town right now in the Bay Area, right? The hottest team right now, in my opinion, up 3-0. Hopefully, we can close out tonight and give our guys a rest, and hopefully, they can be back soon. How are you feeling?
It's going pretty well, I guess, basketball-wise. And Giant Land is not going too well there, getting
I want
swept.
to talk about it, but we will talk about it. So,
Yeah, it's definitely a topic of discussion just because the Giants have been not so great against winning teams this season, and I
Mhm.
believe they're around 15-5 against losing teams, especially when you have the Dodgers and Padres atop of the division. It's going to be pretty important that they start, playing better, right? And we can
Yep.
definitely talk about if they lack star power, in this roster here, or if they can just kind of move forward with what they have.
Yeah, and also the injuries are piling up, right? I think that's the biggest thing for me is, we lost like Brandon Belt again with a sneaking drain, losing Austin Slater, and a few like COVID cases that happened during our stretch of our losses, and losing this Cafonte early kind of messed up the lineup as well, right? I think the Giants were looking pretty good in the first 2 weeks when the lineup was set. Everyone was knows what position they're playing and what days they're starting. And then once you have an injury like that, it kind of throws everything off now, I felt like. So I think that contributes a lot to the losses and the bad luck we're seeing lately.
Yeah, it's also just very tough when your best player, your star player, is constantly hurt every freaking season,
Mhm.
right? And I can definitely resonate with a lot of fans out there who are just super frustrated with the guy, right? The guy's super talented. He's capable of hitting 40 home runs a season here, but he's always coming up with freak injuries. He's always hurt, and that definitely screws up the rhythm of a season, right?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, even Evan Longoria missed the first third of the season, and he's the highest player on the team right now, right? So it goes to show that the Giants have to make some big decisions in the offseason. And I think that's why they're a little hesitant to give out big contracts right now, is they want to see a guy produce and be consistent before they start dealing them out. This isn't like the Giants of old where they're just loyal to a guy to infinity and give them big contracts without them proving themselves. So,
Yeah, but let's stick to some positive stuff out here. And the Warriors are in really good shape in these conference finals. They're up 3-0 against the Mavs. They won the first two games at home here. I think a lot of fans were expecting maybe a loss in game three, but they ended up pulling out of that game there, despite Draymond Green not playing well. I think he fouled out of the game, but Andrew Wiggins has really emerged. As a really big contributor for this Warrior squad. Do you see the Warriors closing this out in a sweep, or do you think it's going to go maybe 5 games or so coming back to San Francisco and Chase Center?
I don't know, man. The way the Mavs are playing, it seems like it's probably gonna be a sweep. Mainly because I think they're depending a lot on Luca to kind of produce, and then having the role players fill in if he gets double teamed. And the role players have been really lights out in the last series, right? They sank a lot of shots, but the Warriors defense just looks really good. They've been locking them down, wearing them out, especially in the second half of the games, and I'm really impressed with Looney. I think Kevon Looney has really stepped it up in terms of offensive rebounds and becoming a key contributor and kind of shows that if the Warriors have a pretty good center, they can really round out that starting five, right? So hopefully we'll get more of Looney, and in the future, if they get Wiseman back, I think that position will be pretty set. And also want to give shout outs, yeah, like you said, to Wiggins. I think that dunk over Luca was amazing, right? One of the best Warrior dunks that we've seen in a while. Kind of sucks that there was like a foul call that kind of ruined the moment a little bit, but I'm glad at least it was there, And it goes to show that if Wiggins is put with a bunch of good players, he can kind of step it up and kind of prove that this is more of his role, right? Is becoming a guy who can kind of stand out when you have other good guys around him, And I think the Timberwolves, when they drafted him, wanted him to be like that central person and superstar, and he just isn't that guy, So, but hey, at least we're getting the best out of him. So,
Yeah, I agree with you there. Wiggins really emerges, especially when he's like the third or fourth option, and he doesn't have that pressure of being the number one guy. But he's definitely played really well. But, kind of going back to that dunk over Luca there, it kind of goes to question, are the refs really making correct calls that they see in game? Because I feel like in a lot of NBA games, especially in the playoffs this season, they're missing a lot of calls, or they're guessing on a lot of calls there. And did you think that the refs like maybe guessed on that foul on Wiggins and maybe just kind of saw Luka's reaction and just said, you know what, I'm just going to call an offensive foul, that even if I see it or not?
No, because I think the way it was explained, and I heard on multiple podcasts, is Wiggins extended his arm, which usually is like an automatic call, but he didn't extend it as far to like push Luca, right? But once you extend your arm on a dunk, that's an automatic whistle to some of the refs, So, and then thankfully there was replay. Usually we don't like replay, but that one helped because that was one of the greatest dunks, and it would have been really shameful if it didn't count, right? And kind of reminds me of the Baron Davis dunk back in the day with the We Believe Warriors, And I think this Wiggins dunk was better in some ways, and it could have been like hands down better without the refs calling it. But I do agree with you. The officiating has been kind of iffy, especially in the last game. A lot of guys were in foul trouble. I think Steph had 5 fouls. Wiggins had 5 fouls, and same with Poole. And then you mentioned, I think Draymond was fouled out at the end of that game. So, the whistles are very inconsistent. Like sometimes they're calling every single play, and sometimes they're just swallowing their whistles. And it isn't just for against the Warriors, right? I saw it on both sides of the ball with the Mavs as well. And yeah, it's just been like a tale as old as time when it comes to the NBA and having bad officiating, and I don't think it'll get any better. But at least the Warriors are experienced and kind of can power through it, right?
Yeah, I think I might disagree with you slightly about whose dunk was better. I think Baron Davis's dunk was a lot better just because first, I think he was playing against a better shot blocker in Andrea Karolinko there. And second, I think Karolinko had a more direct path to trying to block that shot against Baron Davis, as opposed to Luka. He was kind of like on the side of the paint, and maybe making some sort of jump towards Wiggins there. But Luka was never really considered, a shot blocker or rim protector there. And just I guess the type of moment that Baron did it on too, being an underdog, being at home, being in that We Believe team, being in such a lot in such a highly crowded area. I thought that Baron Davis's dunk was by far one of the best dunks I've ever seen, happen in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it was done at home too, which I think is a different feel, right?
Yeah.
And it was funny. I saw a talk with Baron Davis where he talked about the dunk, actually in person, right before the pandemic, and he actually talked about how after it happened, he was really excited, but then he all of a sudden thought to himself, oh crap, this is it. This is gonna define my career. Like everyone's gonna talk about this dunk, and he felt like he was kind of screwed in some ways because he's not gonna be able to top that dunk. So
Hmm.
and I don't think that was the case for Wiggins, where this dunk didn't define him, right? So I think in that respect, I think you're right. But I think it's close up there though, like in terms of Warriors history, mainly because this is like such a breakout moment for Wiggins. I think a lot of people kind of counted him out of the playoffs and of the Warriors at one point, and now he's a key guy. And he almost didn't play this game too, right? He was like on the injury list. So
Yeah.
thankfully he did. We have a comment from What's Up G. Well, how's it going? What's up, G? Do the Warriors sweep tonight? Should we give our picks at the end, or what do you think, Mike?
I guess we can briefly talk about
Yeah.
the state of the game there. But we're just real quick about Baron Davis saying that's like the highlight of his career, and that's what fans will think of it as. I think that's his reasoning because he never really did anything after that dunk, right? He played for the Warriors again for another season. They missed the playoffs, right? Barely. And then he ended up going to the Clippers as a free agent, and he never really emerged, as a big time star or a playoff performer for the Clippers. And his career kind of dwindled from there, right? He played for the Knicks for a little bit. There, he never really got completely healthy or in shape. So yeah, I think after that was basically Baron Davis's defining moment. He could have changed that, right? He could have played 6 or 7 more seasons and started, becoming a star player and emerging into a playoff performer, but he didn't. And that's why everyone will remember Baron Davis for that dunk.
I mean, his whole career, he only had one season where he stayed healthy for all, 82 games, right? Even before joining the Warriors, he's always been plagued with injuries, and then afterwards, that stuck with him, right? So I think I agree with you on that front. He might have exceeded it if he did another big moment in the playoffs, but he just never got that opportunity.
Yeah.
And then What's Up G says Warriors are scary, where Wiggins is the fourth best scoring option, and he was an all-star. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the Warriors have probably the most depth offensively out of all the teams in the playoffs here, right? Who's really going to guard them, in a 7-game series, and who's going to win 4 games, right? And I think that's why Vegas picked the Warriors to be the favorite to win it all prior to the conference finals, because I think the Warriors have a more balanced team out there, right? Especially if we come out of the West, we're facing the Heat or the Celtics, and you saw some of the flaws those teams have, right? In terms of getting blown out on both sides. So I like the Warriors' chances. And going back to What's Up G's comment, are we sweeping tonight here? I think there's a pretty big probability that could happen. It's really going to depend how Dallas is going to come out at that first quarter. Are they going to come out swinging? Are they going to come out with some energy? Are they going to come out with some fight going into this game? And we can tell in that first quarter if that's going to happen. If they do, who knows? I think Dallas can pull it off there. But, kind of reading Luka's quotes post-game after Game 3, he kind of talks about, these are things I have to work on in the off season. It just sounds like he's already resorted to the fact that, they're not going to pull off the 3-0 deficit, right? He's not the type. It didn't sound like he was that type of team where, okay, we're gonna pull off the unbelievable, right? So I think the Warriors have a great chance, but we're gonna determine that within the first 5 minutes or so of this game.
Do you think the real challenge for us now was the Grizzlies in this whole playoff series? I mean, the Nuggets, we knew it was only Nikola Djokovic that was going to be a problem for us. Grizzly was an all-around better defensive team, probably one of the best defensive teams we've seen, right? And then now, obviously, with the Mavericks, we're more endurance. And then you talked about how the Heat and the Celtics have their own problems as well, but they wouldn't be as good defensively as the Grizzlies, or even offensively as well. So do you think the real series and the real finals was actually that series, or do you suspect that the Eastern or the NBA finals will be tougher, I guess?
That's tough to tell, right? But I do think the Grizzlies really did give the Warriors a big, the best bang for their money there,
Yeah.
in terms of like giving them fierce competition, in terms of playing great half court defense, right? And sometimes you have to go through those teams, to win it all, right? And right now I'm reading this book called Blood in the Garden. Um, it's called The Flagrant History of the 1990s New York Knicks, there. And it really talks about how the Knicks faced Michael Jordan and the Bulls in the early 90s there, 92 and 93, and how they really gave them a hard time in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I thought those matchups that the Bulls face, that really helped them in terms of, developing that type of confidence and developing that willpower to win the rest of the playoffs. So I think so, it's to be determined there, but sometimes you do have to go through some hardships, right, in the beginning rounds of the playoffs there to make it a lot easier. Kind of similar to 2015 when the Warriors were down 2-1 against Memphis, right? And they had to kind of overcome that to beat the Cavs later.
Yeah. I mean, we have to be battle tested, right? And I think the Grizzlies definitely battle tested the Warriors. And I think this is a comment that I think was a G gave that was really where my mind was when I asked you a question, right?
Okay.
If the Warriors make the finals, I don't want to see the Celtics. The Celtics are the only team that has a winning record over Steve Kerr, a 7-9 record, including playoffs. Right. So, I do understand that comment from What's Up G, but the problem I think with the Celtics is they might be more talented. They might be a little bit better in terms of having this record over Kerr. I just don't trust him. What team do you see night in and night out with the Celtics is very inconsistent, right? I think that's the same with the Heat as well. And I think the Warriors have been fairly consistent, except for that one game with Memphis where the Warriors got blown out. Other than that, we know exactly what team is showing up, right? And what consistency and what we're going to get in terms of making adjustments and making that push, right? And I think one thing I disagree with you on is tonight you said if the Mavericks come out swinging, they might have a chance. I
Yeah.
disagree with you mainly because the Warriors have the tendency to give it up in the first half and then come out swinging, making adjustments in the second half, and
Mhm.
also out enduring their opponents, right? So even if we're down 10, and at one point I think 19 points in a series going into the half, the third quarter and the fourth quarter, we managed to pull a 10-point lead and win the game, right? So I think the key point for me is actually the end of the third and the beginning of the fourth is how we're going to see if the Warriors can show up and overcome a deficit, which I'm almost expecting the Warriors to be down in the beginning of this game, right? That's just always been their MO is to be really down going in to the half and then making the adjustments and overcoming that deficit, right? So, but yeah, so that's my take. So I'm not actually scared of the Celtics because of that inconsistency. I think the Warriors are way more consistent, and we adjust to a team better in a seven
Mhm.
game series, right? So yeah, so I don't agree with what Was Up G said in there, but out of the three teams that we're playing so far, the Mavs or the Heat or the Celtics, yeah, the Celtics are definitely the bigger threat, right? Out of the Heat and the Celtics, but yeah, I don't think the Warriors. Well, I believe the Warriors will overcome it either way, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also noted that we had a losing record against the Mavs in the regular season this year. And I believe we also had a losing record against the Grizzlies,
Mm-hmm.
right, this year.
They swept us, yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely took care of that, and we mentioned this in prior shows. I'm very confident in this coaching staff there, and we can talk about that a little bit more about Mike Brown's defensive tactics, utilizing the 1-2-2 zone a whole lot more against the Mavs, and I think that has definitely that has definitely changed the dynamics of this series, just because Jason Kidd and his staff have not figured out a way to penetrate that zone, right?
Mm.
And when you watch a lot of the plays against our zone, they're passing the ball around the perimeter. They're not getting the ball inside. You don't have a guy kind of cutting into the paint there. They just haven't found any answers there. And I can definitely be very confident that this staff will be able to scheme against whoever comes out of the East, just because we basically have 3 head coaches on the bench there. We have Kerr, we have Mike Brown, who's going to be a Sacramento Kings coach, and we have Kenny Atkinson, who's probably going to be a head coach within the next 2 or 3 seasons. So 3 very bright minds scheming together a plan. I'll take our chances any day.
Yeah, I agree. And this is the full strength Warriors, right? During the regular season, we never saw Clay, Draymond, Curry, and Poole play at the same time, right? So I think regular season record doesn't matter. I think in the end, and last season you can throw it out as well, right? Because that team was just not full strength, obviously, too. So I think we're getting healthy at the right time, and as long as we don't jaw with the ref, especially Draymond, and he admitted on his podcast that he let the emotions got the better of him, especially in Game 2. Right? I think there was a lot of jawing back and forth with the refs that he took to Game 3 to kind of be a little bit more disciplined and not get teed up twice. Right? I think he was teed up once still. But I think he's trying to be a lot better about that.
Yeah. And I guess the only player that we should be kind of concerned about injury-wise is Otto Porter Jr., right? In the beginning of this series, he had right foot soreness. And then in this last game, in Game 3, he ends up having a left foot soreness here. Is that something maybe we should be concerned about, going into the finals, concluding this series? Because I don't think we're going to see Otto Porter Jr. unless it goes 7 games, right, into this series here. But what is your take on the Porter stuff? Do you think
if we close out tonight, right, Tuesday, there's 11 days before the next series, and he's actually, I think, on track to come back mid-series. Same with Iguodala and GP2, actually. So to me, without Otto Porter, you're gonna depend on other people a lot more, right? You need Wiggins to step up a lot more. You need Looney to step up. You need maybe Kuminga and Mosley, right? Mooney. They used Moody in this last game, right? Without Otto Porter, I think I'm concerned, but not that concerned. Mainly because I think he's replaceable compared to the core 3, right? Like if it was Draymond, Clay, or Curry, definitely concerned, right?
Yeah.
In the magnitude of concern department. Poole, I'll be concerned. Even Wiggins, I'll be concerned, right? But Otto Porter coming off the bench, playing a certain role, I think there's other guys on the roster that can do that.
I also think it helps that the Mavs lack a really big front court threat.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't really need Porter's, physicality down low, right, for this series. But if we face the Celtics, for example, we might need some rebounding. We may need that guy to kind of go down there. So, yeah. Do you think like that 11 game break potentially? Do you think that affects teams? Going into the finals?
It would affect a younger team, but I think this team is, well tested. It would be helpful to get rest for, especially I'm thinking about a guy like Clay, right? Coming off of injury, he needs all the time he can get to rest up, and then coming into the playoffs, Curry was a little dinged up as well, right? And we know the issues that Draymond had near the end of the season. So it'll be good to get the rest. So I'm hoping the Warriors can close out this game and then get that time, right? So.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting postseason when you look back at it, right? We talk about being battle tested against the Grizzlies, and gosh, I already forgot we were facing the Nuggets there, and we had a 3-0 lead, and we ended up winning that series in 5 games. But Jokic was definitely a test too, right? And defending him, the regular season MVP here. So, and then the Mavs are a different test just because they're a different challenge with all the 3-point shooting, and and Doncic and everything. But I think this postseason, we haven't really faced a lot of big time star power, right? We haven't faced any like super teams yet, which I
Yeah,
think has benefited the Warriors, So,
right. And then What's Up G says, with the Heat and Celtic tied at
oh,
2-2, I think the Warriors will get blown out tonight so they can get the bench players play time like they did in Memphis to close it out at home. I don't know about that one, right? You can get bench player time by blowing out the other team too, So
I do think closeout games are the toughest games to
they
win.
are for sure.
And that's what I relate to in What's Up G's quote there, and that's why I said that the first 5 to 10 minutes is going to be really important, right? Because that's going to really dictate how the game will be played. Yeah, the Warriors have come back from big deficits, but knowing that they have a 3-0 deficit, knowing that they have to travel back home anyways, right? Either for a game for a game 5 or for a short vacation, they know in the back of the head that they have this series kind of wrapped up here. So I can see the Mavs, going up 10-15 in this game, riding the crowd, and the Warriors just basically sitting out their best players in the third quarter here. Hopefully they close it out, though. I want a 4-0 sweep, definitely.
Yeah. And I think the Warriors know from experience that having an extra game injuries are a risk, right? Especially with that Toronto year, right? The Toronto series year. You can't take for granted to close out and get the official rest, right? But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it'll be interesting either way. I don't think the Mavs can beat the Warriors at home, so that's why I think the series is over, right? We have 2 chances at home. Um, Unless something catastrophe happens, I think we're gonna be okay here.
Yep. All right, let's briefly talk about some football stuff here. OTA starts on Monday. Not much news regarding some of their players. It looks like Shanahan believes the relationship between Deebo Samuel and the team can get back to normal here. Sounds like there hasn't been a lot of traction there because, Deebo has added the 49ers, right, to his Instagram account and everything. But what do you think about Jimmy Garoppolo stuff, right? Where, Kyle Shanahan also mentioned that he expects that he'll be traded, but it's not a guarantee. It went on hold when surgery happened here.
The never-ending story, huh? Well, June 13th is the start of mandatory camp. So if they have him on the roster on the 13th, they have to pay him that full contract, right? The 25 mil. So I expect something to happen. I think the reason why it's not guaranteed is we don't know how Jimmy G's recovery is going to be. If he's back to normal, throwing again before the 13th, there's a good chance I think he ends up in Carolina, right? If not, then they probably just have to cut him. So I think that's what he meant. That's the way I interpret it. I don't see a scenario where Jimmy G stays on the roster, especially now we have another quarterback that we drafted, right? So you're going to have 4 QBs on the roster. I know he's probably going to be a practice player, but it's just not, the Niners style to keep more than 3 QBs. So to me, I think it's good as gone, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah. Sounds like the Niners will also release D Ford finally from the team as well here. But I don't know what else to say about that, right?
Well, I think that's the reason why they drafted Drake Jackson, right? They wanted him to be the D Ford that's healthy. I think his career has been up and down. When he's healthy, he's been really good. But then he's just never healthy, right? And they finally decided to cut bait with him. I think that was one of the biggest flops in terms of trades, just having him toss it up like that and always getting hurt. And we picked him up right after we lost to KC in the Super Bowl, right? So he has a ring over us too. Maybe the Niners saw that he was a problem for the Niners and thought, they can be a contributor. But yeah, we definitely got the short end of the stick on that trade, right? So
Yep. All right, want to talk about the Giants now and some of their struggles, or
Do we have to? Yes, let's talk about it.
but they did lose to the Mets, right?
Yeah,
Yesterday,
blown out.
here. Yeah, I turned on the TV around the sixth inning, and I saw Cobb giving up like 6 runs, right? And I was like, wow, he's still in the game after giving up 6 runs to the Mets. So their struggles really, really continue here, and I think that's just baseball in general, right?
Mhm.
When things aren't clicking as a team, you struggle in all areas, especially with your pitching. And talking about that Padres series, they were in the game. They were competitive the first 2 games. I think they lost by 1 run in both games there, but at the same time, they gave up quite a few runs to the Padres as well, and um, they couldn't really pitch to Machado. Right, Machado was really tearing it up out there, and then you have the stinker on Sunday, a 10-1, blowout loss, which I thought was pretty embarrassing here. But we talked about the injuries. We talked about some of their defense and pitching struggling there. But is it just one of those things where we call it a long season and the Giants will, come back to earth and start, playing well again?
I mean, there's 121 games left, right? So it's not like we need to panic now. But the defense is definitely a concern, right? I think Ruff had a big blunder in outfield, for giving up 2 runs that kind of set off the momentum for the Mets. That was a terrible look, right? And then you mentioned the injuries. I mean, right now, Austin Slater has a left wrist inflammation. Kirk Casale, concussion. Brandon Belt, we talked about knee drain. Lamont Wade, left knee inflammation. Jake McGee, back injury, right? He's coming back soon. I think he's pitching in AAA right now and probably going to come back soon. But all this stuff adds up, right, to a team that's lesser than. But if we can get healthy at the right time, kind of like what the Braves did last year, I like our chances, right? But we'll have to see. I just hope we make some midseason moves, maybe if we're still in contention at that point. Um, but yeah, I just have to ride the ship, I guess, until then. It's a long season, right? I mean, that's the thing with baseball. All this
Yeah.
could change with a few wins string together. Then we're gonna have a different conversation again, right? And with all these injuries, we're still a top 5 team in the NL, right? So it's putting that in perspective, I guess it just kind of changes everything. So
Yeah, I don't think there's much more to add to that. There, definitely short-term struggles doesn't mean that your season is over, right? And I just think we have enough good pitching at the top of the rotation to overcome, any losing streaks in the future. But we definitely need that offense to start playing well again, right? And we really need Bell to come back. I think that's really important there. Those other players that you mentioned, yeah, they could be out, but they're not like top contributors for your team. And I
mhm.
wouldn't mind Jake McGee not being on the roster anymore at this point. I think he's sporting a 7+ ERA the last time he pitched here. So do you think the Giants need star power? Do you think they need to, get someone like Juan Soto from the Nationals?
I mean, it'll be nice, but there's gonna be a huge price tag, right? So probably not. I think the way the Giants are going about is trusting prospect and teamwork, and worked last season, right? Be able to call up guys from AAA. A lot of people on Twitter was joking that some of these quadruple A players are here in the league, but whatever, like I said, stick with the program, develop these guys. I think we'll if Farhan we trust, I guess, right? And what's up, G says Padres aren't at full strength. Yes, Titus and Cleveland is coming back. So yeah, I guess the Padres will get better probably.
Yeah. Well, I think hiring Bob Melvin as their manager has definitely helped here. But yeah, we will talk about some of our picks of the week here. You want to jumpstart the picks of the week, Jerry?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Only two picks, really, right? The main one, I think we'll save for last, but let's pick the rest of this Mets and Giants series, right? I think we have 2 games left. We're obviously down one now in this 3-game series. Tonight going is Logan Webb, 5-1, 3.54 ERA, 34 strikeouts. Going against Chris Bassett, right-handed pitcher, 4-2, 2.77 ERA, 49 strikeouts. So what do you think of, or and then we'll also pick on Wednesday, TBD on the Mets pitcher, but for the Giants, Jacob Janis is going 1-1, right-handed pitcher, 2.7 ERA, 20 strikeouts. Right, I think Chris Bassett and Logan Webb are pretty similar actually.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I hate picking against your own team, right? And this is going to be one of those moments where I'm going to pick against the Giants here just because they have been struggling and Logan Webb hasn't really been totally sharp this season. And Chris Bassett has pitched really well, right? He's sporting a 2.77 ERA, 49 strikeouts, 4-2 overall record. So I'm going to go with the Mets here. I think the Mets will score 5+ runs in this game. But for the third game of this series, I think the Giants will pull that one off just because, they played well behind Jacob Junis this season here. And the Mets don't really have a designated starter, right? So I think it's pretty easy to pick the Giants in that third game. And then I'm going to pick the Mets in that second game here. What's your take?
What's interesting about the Mets right now is, with Max Scherzer hurt. I actually saw a video of Bartolo Colon. His birthday's today, right? So there was a lot of videos circulating where he's making a pitch to come back to the league. The thing is, he turned 49. So I don't know how realistic it is, but there was a really good video on Twitter that he put out of him pitching. He still has it. He still has the fastball. Still looks like he can pitch. So maybe sometime in the season we'll see him. But yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Logan Webb not super sharp, mainly because Chris Bassett I think is a really good pitcher, right? He's becoming one of their best starters, especially with Grom hurt, right? He's becoming one of the top guys there, so that one's gonna be really tough. And then Jacob Janis, yeah, don't know who the pitcher is, so I can see the Giants going 2-0 though. Like kind of an embarrassment defeat with the last game. So yeah, my pick will be 2-0 at this point. I'm gonna put my faith in Webb and Janis to pull it out.
All right.
At home, right? Because I think the Giants tend to play a little bit better at home, and yeah, we'll see. All right, main game we're picking Warriors plus 1.5. Right, they're underdogs going against the Mavericks in Dallas. The over under is 215.5. Who do you have, Mike?
Gosh, this is going to be a tough one here. I thought the Warriors were going to lose game 3, and going into game 4, I think the Warriors will lose as well. Here, I hope I'm wrong. So I'm going to pick the Mavs here just because I see the coach in Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd's not going to just lay it down here. And I think they're going to have a pretty good game plan on how to score and how to score against the zone. So I'm going to pick the Mavs here, and I'm going to pick the under at 215.5. What about you?
To me, 215 is really low, kind of suspicious, right? So you know what happens when it's suspicious. I'm going to go with the under there. The thing with me is it's kind of weird that the line is 1.5, mainly because the Warriors won by 9 points in the last game, right? And then the Warriors in the last game was also underdogs. They were a 3-point underdog, actually. So that's a huge swing, right? And a lot of people are taking the Mavs because I think they're thinking what you're thinking. There's no way they can lose at home, especially taking one game and closing game rather, right? So to me, I think I'm going to take the Warriors here. I think the Warriors close it out. 1.5 gain the points. So either way, I think if they lose, it'll probably be close, especially what Vegas is thinking. I do like our chances here, mainly because it's so suspicious, right? I would think the line is a little bit more of a money line, right? Or the Warriors be favored, but with them getting the points, I'll take that every time.
All right, very good. Any lasting thoughts here?
No, I mean, shout out to What's Up G. Thanks for tuning in as always.
All right. So we should be looking forward to a nice game 4 here. It's nice to watch a game without too much pressure, you know. That's always great, but they do go to game 5 or so. That'll be on Friday, I believe, back at Chase Center here, and I think the Warriors should be able to complete the series by then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be overconfident, but the Warriors, I think it'll be awesome to see them back in the finals, especially given the drought, right? All those years of not, making the playoffs and
Yeah,
and being eliminated in that play-in game, right? It's kind of was pretty demoralizing considering we have the best player in the league, in my opinion, in Curry, right? So don't want to
definitely.
waste his talents. So
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for listening this week here. We will tune in next week. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the MJ SportsCast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at the MJ SportsCast, at Mike408, at MindofJerry11. Tune in next week for another exciting episode.